it was also fascinating to me. And I started reading a book by Sylvia Browne. It was so good. It was called Life on the Other Side. And I was in school in Boston walking through their subway. They call it the T. And I'm reading this book and they were talking about the concept of someone who passes before you were born. They could still see your whole life. You still know them. They still know you. And I thought of my grandfather on my father's side who died 9 months before I was born. And I would always say, I didn't know him. He died before I was born. But I thought at that moment, maybe I know him better than anyone. Maybe he's been guiding me my whole life.
Welcome to Next Realm, Beautiful Stories from Beyond, a show that explores the profound and heartwarming stories of individuals who have experienced messages from their departed loved ones. I'm your host, Amber Rasmussen, and today's guest is Fern Ronay, author and podcaster who will share how a lifetime of signs from beyond led her to a new career path. Okay, let's do this. I'm so excited. So I want to hear about just from the beginning, because you have a very interesting story. And then, and obviously your story is what made you I would say the inspiration. Is that fair to say? As far as the books
it's true.
And, so tell me start to finish.
True.
How did this unravel itself? Because I
life
love
and
it.
times of Fern Ronay.
Right.
So I was born and raised in Belleville, New Jersey, Italian-American, really not a religious family, but my brother and I, for some reason, were very religious. It's the strangest thing. My parents are not religious at all, but we were raised, we're Italian, raised Catholic, had, communion, all of that stuff. So much so that in high school, my mother would drop me off at mass and then pick me up. She didn't go, but I did.
That is hilarious.
Yes, it's so funny.
And usually it's the parents, right?
Right. I just felt great faith, and I know my brother's the same way. So just close to God. I knew God loved me no matter what. It's just, I just always had great faith. And then my mom in my early 20s was watching John Edward, the psychic medium, on Crossing Over. And I was like, what are you watching? Isn't this against our religion? And she's like, who cares? And she's watching it, and he was incredible and is incredible. I think he's the best one, really, that there is. You could just tell he has such integrity, and he's really cared about the people he was reading. And it just made me trust him. And so I got so curious about all of this. And shortly after that, my aunt was going through a very hard time, and I was sitting in church and a fly was buzzing around me. Her mother, my grandmother on my father's side, passed when I was 15. And this fly is buzzing around me as I'm praying for my aunt. And I thought, is this my grandmother?
Right. Because it's not when you start learning about signs.
Yeah. So I'm like, through
books.
him.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm like, maybe it's my grandmother, saying thank you for praying for my daughter. And ever since then, whenever I would be worried about something, a little fly out of nowhere, I would be like, hi, Gram, including when my niece was born many years later in a hospital in New Jersey on a freezing cold February day. There's a fly in the hospital. We have it on video. She was born and there's a fly in the hospital. And my sister-in-law says, why is there a fly in the middle of February? I'm like, she's here. She wasn't going to miss this for the world. So that was the thing that started it. After that, I started learning as much as I could, reading, just really trying to study this. It was so fascinating to me. And I realize now that was a spiritual awakening. That's what happens when you go through a spiritual awakening. You want to learn as much as you can, and you start seeing the world so differently and seeing your life and the lessons and everything you've gone through so differently. And I was only in my 20s then, but it was all so fascinating to me. And I started reading a book by Sylvia Browne. She was another psychic medium. She often got things wrong, but being a psychic is like any other skill. You have to really hone it and practice it. Maybe she interpreted things differently, but this one book in particular, maybe it was ghostwritten, it was so good. It was called Life on the Other Side. And I was in school in Boston walking through their subway. They call it the T. I was walking through the T, reading this book back when it was, we didn't have iPhones then. And I'm reading this book, and they were talking about the concept of someone who passes before you were born. They could still see your whole life. You still know them. They still know you. And I thought of my grandfather on my father's side who died 9 months before I was born. And I would always say, I didn't know him. He died before I was born. But I thought at that moment, maybe I know him better than anyone. Maybe he's been guiding me my whole life. And I believe, you meet with your loved ones and your spirit guides, your loved ones who passed and your spirit guides when you sleep at night. I was like, maybe he's been my guide my whole life, and I know him better than anyone. And at that exact moment, a young woman was reading the subway map, and she said to her friend, Jen, I can see it from the other side. My name is Jennifer Fernicola, now Ronay.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know Jen's a very common name, but at that moment that I'm thinking that thought, reading Life on the Other Side, thinking about my Grandpa Fernicola, who's been watching me my whole life, she says, Jen, I can see it from the other side. What she meant was she was telling her friend Jen,
right,
we have to go to the other side of the subway. But
No,
it also was a message for me.
Yes, and that is it. That is what we've been talking about throughout all the episodes so far of my podcast, is these meaningful coincidences.
Yes.
And you start noticing them. The fly, for instance, it's sure a bug flying around. Yes. Mm-hmm. And not every bug flying around is a sign. But when you start seeing it in not normal situations, like the maternity ward having a like, I don't know, in the middle of winter, that's it. And her saying your name relating to the other side, it is a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. It's meaningful. There's a reason.
Exactly. At that exact moment. Exactly. There is a reason. Yes. So then after that, my other grandfather passed on my mother's side, and my mother started finding pennies everywhere, but in weird places. And so she said to him out loud in the car one day, if it's really you, send me 3 shiny pennies. And the next day she went to the coffee shop and there were 3 shiny pennies on the counter. Not like give a penny, take a penny, but like 3 shiny pennies waiting for her. And then ever since then, we would find pennies in weird places. And usually when I was worried about something, and I'm like, I'm always worried about something. But one great example was I was a single lawyer in New York working for a huge accounting firm at that time, working on a project, 3:00 in the morning. I was like, is this my life? Like, what is happening? I was so depressed. I was like, it's 3:00 in the morning. I'm still at work. This is nuts. And I needed a stapler. Once again, this was a long time ago. We still printed things. I needed a stapler, and I couldn't find a stapler anywhere on like the 30th floor of the World Financial Center. I was like opening all of these drawers. I finally opened a drawer, I don't know, of someone's desk, and there were a slew of pennies. And I felt like my grandfather was just like, get through this season, like so many things. Just get through this. It's just a season. Get through this day. Get through this night. Things change. They get better, and you're learning something in all of this. So he's always with me when I need it.
Oh, that's really sweet. I've always heard about the coins. Mm-hmm. I have never had that myself, but my aunt, it was when my grandmother died, it was dimes, I believe. She would see dimes everywhere. But yeah, I've heard it with multiple people that's one of those signs.
Yeah.
I have a question for you though. So how do you balance your religious beliefs? Because I did a little research. We were chatting about this before and how Catholicism doesn't really believe this. So as a young child, and your parents aren't so much into it, but you are learning all about the religion and what they believe and don't believe in. And when you discovered the psychics, were you still going to church, and how did you make that make sense?
Yeah, I actually still went to church every Sunday up until since I stopped going during COVID. But I just feel like it's fine. I feel like I don't believe there's anything wrong with it. I think anything that tries to scare you or make you feel shame or any of those like dark emotions, dark feelings is not God. God is love. God is pure acceptance. And anything that brings you comfort and joy and higher vibrations is God, which this does for me, which is why I tell everyone about it. I'm talking about signs from the other side all the time, because it's brought me such comfort and helped me analyze my life in a way and things that have happened. And it's been very comforting for me. And I want other people to feel that way. And you're not crazy. You're not weird. You're not sacrilegious. This is all about energy, and it's all about love. So there are a lot of things about the Catholic Church I don't agree with. But at the end of the day, my religion is just be nice. And I married a Jewish man. So I'm Catholic. My husband's Jewish. We say, like, we're not as religious as I was growing up. I'm not particularly as an adult, certainly not, as my 20s, and I went on, my mind opened so much more. And in our wedding vows, we said, like, we belong foremost to the Church of Just Be Nice.
Mm-hmm.
and that's where our values are. So yeah, so I don't think it's sacrilegious.
Yeah.
Maybe technically, but I don't care. It's
No,
love.
I get it. And I
Yeah.
feel like, because how do I explain it? I feel like I've become more spiritual
Mm-hmm.
than religious, and I feel like there's a place to coexist
Mm-hmm.
and that
Absolutely.
you can be both. And I feel like sometimes with religion, it's almost like they're the mediator between you and the higher
Mm-hmm.
God, source, whatever you want to call him. Whereas when you're more spiritual, you kind of have a direct path to that.
Yes.
Like you don't
Yes.
really need someone to have that relationship, but you can, I don't know. I just
Yes.
more
That's perfectly
awakening to
said.
me. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. You don't need anyone to speak to God
Right.
directly. And you can
Hmm.
get mad at God. I've talked about this before where so many people see God as like this old white man and he's looking at
Yes.
you with
Yeah.
this, the
Sitting
sting
on
of,
his throne.
yes,
Like, yeah.
yes, giving you the sting of disapproval. No, that's not God as far as I'm concerned. Like I told my therapist recently, I was like, I think God looks to me, God looks like RuPaul, which is, which is I'm not like a huge RuPaul fan. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't watch the show, but he just embodies, he's so comfortable with himself. He loves himself in the right way. Like, he's fully accepting of himself and he emanates love. That's what I picture God looking like. Like I picture God looking like RuPaul and he's telling me to relax, that there's nothing I could do that could make him not love me, and that I worry about things I don't have to worry about, but that's okay. It's part of the lesson. And he just teases me and he's love.
So curious. So when you're reading the books, were you kind of trying to, before you saw the
The
bug,
pennies. Yeah.
the little fly and the pennies, were you kind of like meditating, or like, how do I make this happen? Like, I want to, like, you're reading about these stories of these really cool things happen. Were you just like gonna wait till it unfolds and hopefully you'll get a sign, or are you just being more aware and cognizant of things?
Just being more aware, like the way things were explained, I was like, wow, like that's how it works. Like it was so fascinating to me. Yeah, I was just like, my mind was just being opened and there was no like desperation, like I want this to happen to me. I don't even think I thought about it. Yeah, I just was learning.
Did your family embrace it?
They think I'm weird, but most people do. But um, over the years, they've embraced it much more, to the point where if they see a penny, they'll send it to me. It's been over 20 years. They've had time to accept it, and they, yes, have, yeah,
Right.
opened their minds too.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Because the minute it happens to you or them, like, then they get it. Like,
Yes.
oh, okay. Like,
Yes.
that's unexplainable. I don't know why, this little bug or this little bird or this little whatever it was is here. It's like once they have it in their head and then something like that happens, they're like, okay. Then they start, well, maybe there's something else going on.
Yes, it's
Maybe.
so true. It's
So
true.
then where do you go from there? So you're in New York and you're working and you're thinking
single
this
girl
sucks.
finding pennies.
Yeah, finding pennies, and it helped you kind of.
It did. I
things
remember
in
going to
perspective.
Vegas for Valentine's Day with my friend, and I was like, I had broken up with my boyfriend the year before, and I was like, ugh. And we took the train to Newark Airport, and for some reason she was like, I don't want to sit here, let's move up. So we moved up and there were 3 pennies on the ground, and I'm like, why would she like want to change seats? But she did, and I was like, all right, it was meant to be. He's like, you're not going to be single for every Valentine's Day. There were so many signs like that.
Why
So yes,
pennies? 3 pennies is so interesting to me.
Right? Sometimes it's a single penny here and there, but they often come in 3s. It's wild. But so then I met my husband, and then I was on kind of a like a career, kind of just early midlife crisis, where I was like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, I feel like I'm so much more creative. I've learned since then that I am a creative person, and it wasn't encouraged my whole life, through no fault of my parents, really. They just, you have a smart kid, you're like,
You must
don't
be a
become
lawyer. You must be a doctor. You must be,
Exactly. It was the 80s. Those were the values. Yes. Yeah. So, and I'm proud to be a lawyer. If I ever have the time, hopefully someday soon, I'd be happy to do pro bono. But for now, I have to explore this creative side. And so I started taking writing classes and on-camera reporting classes. And then I met my husband, and he's a creative director in advertising, which is, he comes up with the ideas for commercials. So I remember meeting him on 7707, and like, I'm a lawyer in New York. Everyone I know is a lawyer or works in finance. Like, I don't know, that's New York. And he's telling me he comes up with the ideas for TV commercials. I was like, how is that a job? Like, it just sounded too fun. And so it's a real job.
It is fun.
Yes, and it is fun. And I was like, wow, like to have a creative job, like my mind was blown. And he really encouraged me to see myself as a creative person. And so we started dating, and then we got engaged. We moved to Chicago, and I started writing my first novel, and it was so healing in a way. And then we moved to Los Angeles, and within a month or two of moving here, I found my publisher. And since then, I've published 2 books, and I'm working on a 3rd. But the books are about signs. They're somewhat based on me, but also somewhat
inspired
not.
A little bit.
Yes, yes.
That's so interesting, because had you not learned about signs and embraced that in your life, you would never have gotten to be a book publisher or open that door. Because what do you write about? Like, cool, I want to write, but like, obviously, like those things had to been in your path.
Yes, it all
I mean?
had to happen the way it happened.
Yes,
it's so
exactly.
true. Yes. So my first book is the story of a single 29-year-old lawyer in Manhattan who is guided by her dead Italian grandparents, and they send her pennies. They meet with her in her dreams when she's asleep, and they send her pennies when she's awake. And she meets a bald Jewish creative director. And so it is somewhat inspired by my story, but there's so much, like, she's immature, she's reckless. She has to be, otherwise it would be not a very interesting book.
Right.
So she makes a lot of mistakes. And her parents are divorced. My parents have been married 55 years. Her parents, the father is kind of has terrible judgment and says terrible things and causes her anguish. But my dad's not like that, thank God. My parents are not as toxic as the dad is in the book. But I have to make him interesting. Like,
right.
It's
of course.
It's fiction.
You have to. Yes. And so you used your passion, I would say, for the woo stories.
Yes. I describe it as Sex and the City meets Ghost.
Yes. Oh, I love both of those.
Yes.
And then so as you're, switching careers and writing and living in LA, did you continue to experience more woo
signs? Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. More and more. And so many times that I should really write them all down. But one of the significant ones was, we had a cat named Magoo, and he was our little baby, and he passed in 2017 at 16 years old. And it was really hard. And so my husband and I, the next day, were like, we have to get out of the house. So we drove to Ojai. Ojai is a very spiritual place, and it's beautiful. And when we got there, it just felt right. It felt very comforting. And so we got there, and immediately we saw a restaurant called Libby's on the grounds of the Ojai Valley, and it's really beautiful. And we're like, Libby, that's our other cat who passed 7 years earlier. We're like, oh, that's a sign, like they're together. And then my husband was like, when do you think we'll see the bear? So as Magoo was actively passing, I was like, I know you're going to send us a bear. That's going to be your sign. Because we always called him like our baby bear, our bunny bear, or something bear. So I was like, I know you're going to send us a bear when the time is right. So we left the Ojai Valley, and we're walking around downtown Ojai. My husband sees bears everywhere, like in a store window, or we live in the state of California. So of course there's like the state bear is like on every license plate. He's like, what about that? What about that? I'm like, no, like when it's a sign, you just know. It's like falling in love. You're like, this is different. This is for me. And he's like, a grizzly bear could walk across the street in a t-shirt that says Magoo says hi, and you'll be like, I don't know. I don't think that's the sign. He's like, how are these not signs? I'm like, they're just not. Like, when you know, you know.
When you know, you know. It's so true.
It's so true. So we walked into a card shop later that day, and I'm spinning the cards around, and I see a chubby little bear. Like, he's even like, he just had like Magoo's essence of just like chubby cuteness. And it said, sometimes I sit and ponder on how you're doing over yonder. And I was like, oh, I think like this is it. Like we're always going to wonder how he's doing on the other side. Like, this is it. I feel it. So I bought the card. I went to go pay for it. And the woman at the register, there were 2 registers, and the woman at the register says, they'll help you on the other side. Meaning the other register.
Oh,
but
oh
like
no. Oh my
kind
God.
of like Jen, I can see it from the other side. They'll help you on the other side. I went,
oh,
if that's not confirmation, that was my sign.
Oh,
Yes.
I love that. That just gave me the goosebumps.
Oh.
I wasn't even thinking the cash register on the other side. I was like, what? Was that out of the blue?
Right? They'll help you on the other side. Or like, yes, they will. We feel like he's always, it's been 8 years and we're just so busy doing our things that we're like, every year we're like, maybe this year we'll get a cat. In the meantime, we're like 2 like child-free people, like just value our freedom. So like some people have like 2 kids, 2 dogs, a cat, a hermit crab, a guinea pig. And we're like, maybe we'll get a cat this year. But we're like, I don't know, the work. In the meantime, cats are like not that much work. But to us, we're like, I don't know. Well, maybe eventually. But we know Magoo will send us the right
okay. Do you have that belief too? Because I just did a story about the dog sending, and she got a dog recently. The Rainbow Bridge, there was a 2-parter that I did, and her dog Landshark had passed away, and we were talking about how he will send the next dog, and she saw this scruffy dog in her dream with Landshark, and we were joking, and I was like, how long is it gonna be? Well, she texted me recently, he came. This is the dog that I saw. He was up for it was a girl. She was up for adoption, and she sent me the picture, and she's got the little scruffy face. She's like, that's it. This is my dog. This is the dog that Landshark
I'm so happy for her.
Yeah. So are you also on board with like
100%? Yes.
Cat will be chosen by your
absolutely. We're like, we know that Magoo's on the other side. Like we say, he's working the sign machine, like trying to send us signs all the time, and bears all the time. And he's also like prepping our next little bear to come to us. We're like, he's like combing his hair, he's like getting him all ready. But when the time comes, time is different on the other side. So like it might be 8 years on Earth, but time's different. It doesn't exist on the other side. So he's like prepping him.
Yeah, like a long time, but short time for them.
Yeah. So when the time is right, he'll definitely send him. My husband has an Aunt Peppy, and I think if he'd never met me, I don't know if the family would acknowledge that her sign is a butterfly, but because I indoctrinate everyone, a butterfly came to my sister-in-law and she was like, I know it's a sign from Peppy. So ever since then, we talk about Peppy, and I never met her, but I feel like I know her. And so we were talking about her walking into an event at my in-laws when we were visiting them in Florida. And I was like, oh, Peppy, send us a sign. Like we talk about you all the time. And then we forgot about it. We went to the event. We're like talking to people, and we're talking to this one woman, and my husband goes, look at her earrings. And they were butterfly earrings. And she was like, what? And then we told her, and she's like, I was not going to wear these.
Right?
She said I was going to wear something else, and something said, wear these butterfly earrings. So I put them on.
I love that. I know I know some people just think, oh, it's just coincidence. But when you know, like, just like you said, it is like this all-knowing, like,
it's so true.
It wasn't so true. A coincidence. I'm telling you.
It's so true.
God. I remember you talking about your wedding ring story.
What's my wedding ring story?
Something about congratulations. And then there was a leaf. Something about a leaf, but there was
my grandmother,
Was it? I wrote down story, congratulations.
Oh, my grandmother who...
Oh, she had a sense. Yes. Was that what it was?
Yes. My grandmother would say things like she met with her mother in her dreams, and it meant nothing to me growing up. I would be like, oh, so like she had a dream about her, but now I know she was remembering a visit with her mother. She was very in tune, but didn't really understand it. So we were just like, oh, all right. But now looking back, I'm like, wow, if I had a completely different perspective back then, we would have had such different conversations about these things, and it would have been wonderful. But anyway, yes. So she definitely had a sense for things. My husband bought my engagement ring, but we hadn't been engaged. We didn't get engaged yet. Like he had the ring. And so we walked in to say hi to my grandmother. She was living with my parents at the time. And she said, congratulations. And we're like, why? My husband was like, what does she know? It's like, does she know? Like, how would she know? She was also like kind of losing it a little at the end. She never had like, it was never got to a terrible point. But yes, it was very strange that she would say congratulations. She ended up passing before the wedding. But yeah, it was like she knew.
What about the leaf?
Yeah,
Sending the
she's
leaf.
the leaf. So
Is
before
that
she
your
passed,
grandmother?
yeah. So
Oh,
before she passed, by then I was
into
fully
it.
into it. So
Yeah.
I said, you have to send us a sign when it's time. And she's like, all right. And she was laying on a pillow that had the sheets had like leaves on them. And I was like, how about a leaf? She was like, oh, like from a tree? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, okay. And then after leaves come in magical ways, I went to this store one day and I bought a necklace, and it was a leaf in like kind of like diamond. It wasn't real diamonds, but what is that called? Like it's a
Like a Rick Zirconia? Or like a man
diamond. Like they're not full diamond. It doesn't matter. It's
like a little chip? Like those little
yes.
Okay.
And I was like, I love this. I have to have it. And then I took it home and I remembered, oh, this is the day she passed. Like of all days that I'm like, I have to have this necklace. I didn't even think of the leaf thing. I just loved it for some reason.
Yeah.
And you would think someone like me put these things together right away. And even me, I was like, oh my God, like of all days to buy a leaf necklace, I didn't even think of my grandmother. And then I realized this is the day she passed. So yeah, she's come through many ways too. Yeah.
Oh,
and
love
that necklace, when we were closing on our house, we had to meet with a notary and she was going through all of our papers. And she had a leaf necklace on, the same one that I have. And I was like, oh, I love your necklace. And she said, I almost didn't wear it, but something told me to wear it today. And knowing me, I'm like, I have so much anxiety. Like until the house closed, I like can't get excited. But my grandmother was saying like, calm down. This is a good thing. It's all going to work out.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Tell me about what made you decide to do the podcast. So you had your books.
Yeah. So
Your podcast is called Signs from the Other Side, which is perfect.
I had the 2 books, and well, my first book came out in 2016, and I was writing the second one, and I just was like, I want to tell people stories, these particular stories, and I was doing AfterBuzz TV, which was an online network, and so I was friends with a lot of people who were doing podcasts. So I was like, can you tell me how to do this? And so someone was, gave me a short, I don't know, tutorial. And I was like, I'm going to do it. So I just started it in 2018 and I definitely loved it so much. But it can be a lot of work. And so there was a time when I was just like, I have to stop this for a while because, we have to take a break. But I just decided to do it because I was like, the more people hear these stories, the more it opens their minds and hopefully brings them comfort. Like my main point is that I just want people to feel that if you think these things, you're not crazy, you're not weird, like come sit with us. So when I saw your podcast, I was like, thank God that, it's the more stories we tell, the better. Like this is a community of us woo people and
It's our people. And
yes.
It's not like the stigma is going away, or hopefully you're chipping away at it. Where
I think, yes, you and I definitely are. We might not feel that way and it's a lot of work, but we're definitely chipping away. It's in the zeitgeist. We're doing it.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite story amongst some of the ones?
I don't, but I am fascinated that no one's ever repeated a story. There've been, yes, a couple of butterflies, yes, a couple of, pennies, coins, but they're all so different. Like Spirit is so creative. I've had 63 episodes and no one has ever told the same story. They have not come through in the same way. It's fascinating.
I know. It just makes you want to learn more too, right?
Yeah, it's true.
And it kind of makes you not afraid to die too.
Yeah.
Like kind of the whole life experience on Earth. You'll always grieve for your loved ones, and that's just part of being a human being. Right. But when you have this bigger picture, it doesn't have the same scariness, I guess.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It's so funny because, that's exactly it. Through AfterBuzz, I was blessed to be able to interview John Edward, like talk about coming full circle. The interview is still up and he's amazing. And in the interview, I asked him if he's afraid to die. And he said, no. he's not thrilled about the way it'll happen, which
Right.
is just, I have the same feel. Like, yes, I get
Yeah.
it. That part, not thrilled about that. But what happens after, not scary.
And so when does because you're relaunching, which I'm super excited about. So where can they find it? All the information. I will have a link on my website too. I have like a guest profile section on my website, so we can link your books and your website and all the things. But I'll let you kind of tell our guests, like, if they want to write in to share their story or go listen.
Thank you. So it'll be relaunched in July, and it'll be one episode a week, and you can find it wherever you listen to podcasts and then also on YouTube. So it used to just be an audio podcast, but now it'll be on camera. And we have wonderful guests, including you. Yeah, so that's where you'll be able to find it. And my website is fernronay.com. So there's a podcast page. So it'll be updated with every new episode.
Perfect. And I am going to go read the books too. I love books
Thank you.
and I have a flight coming up. So I'm going to just binge your
Aw,
books. I'm
I'll
super
send them
excited
to
about
you.
that.
Aw.
Yay. Thank you again to Fern for sharing her incredible story. Please go give her some love and like and subscribe to her podcast, Signs from the Other Side, and be sure to check out her books as well, Better in the Morning and Better Believe It. I'll provide all of those links in the show notes as well. And don't forget that if you have a story to share, please send me an email at nextrealmpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, friends, and we will see you in the next episode.